A thin rip jig is designed to make safe, repeatable cuts in an efficient manner on your table saw. Let's take a look at this thin rip jig made by Going Make. Out of the box, the Going Make has an instruction booklet and has the cast aluminum ripping jig configured with a T-slot type bottom. It also has an extension adapter to allow you to go into 3/4 inch wide U-slots, and has additional mounting hardware for using the thin rip jig on a 3/8 wide by 1/4 inch deep socket. My table saw is equipped with the T-slot, so we're going to loosen up the bolt or the star handles on there and try to get this aligned. Okay, so once I've got that aligned with the jig, or with the slot, I'm going to slide it up towards the blade, raise the blade enough to where we can make contact with one of the teeth. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that when you're doing these alignments, do make sure that your table saw is unplugged for safety. When you're going to use these thin rip jigs, if you don't have a zero clearance insert, you can take and align blue painter's tape on either side of the raised blade, and that will give you the closure on each side of the blade so that you don't have your thin rips falling back into the saw and possibly kicking back at you. So once you are at the alignment, you can secure the jig by pushing back if it's loose in the slot like mine is, and tightening it down. And then with the center knob here, you want to extend that out to where it contacts a tooth. This thin rip jig actually has alignment marks that you can arrange based on where you want to cut, so that you have a good reference point. I like to start my cuts on a solid line so it's easier to measure. And they do have this in both the inches side and the millimeters side, so you can adjust a starting point for each using the hex key that was included. So then that way I know that measuring from 70 millimeters inward, I can get the distance in millimeters from my blade to the edge of the cut. So if I wanted to do a 10 millimeter cut, I would line up on the 60, and that would give me 10 millimeters between the bearing and the saw blade. I'm going to do the same thing with my inch side here. So I'm going to align those to 2 3/4 inches. So this is 2 inches, this is 3 inches, this is 2 3/4 inches. And that's it for setting the sides. Now, if I wanted to do a 1/4 inch cut, I can just loosen up the bronze knob and move it in from the 3 3/4 mark down to the 1/2 inch mark. Lock it back into place, and then there should be a 1/4 inch distance between the blade and the bearing. Another safety feature I want to point out with this, and I don't know how good it'll be yet, is that this bearing is one way. So if you were to cut on the right hand side of your, or use the jig on the right hand side, it would allow you to move the wood in this direction. Same on the left-hand side where I like to make my cuts. The bearing only goes to where I can feed in one direction easily. So now let's get our table saw plugged in and go through the process of doing a rip. Okay, so when we align the jig, we want to make sure that we are in front of the blade with the jig, not on it or behind it, because we don't want to cause any kind of pinching back on the blade that could result in a kickback. So I will go ahead and arrange the blade. I'm going to push it to the left of my slot and secure it. And we are lined up on 1/4 inch cuts. Now what we'll do is adjust our fence, and now we will be ready to make our cut. So after I've gone ahead and made 2 rips, I'm going to go ahead and measure this with my calipers, and let's see where we're at. So hopefully you can see that. That's 1/4 inch. And on our second strip, can see we're also at 1/4 inch. So on the overall, I'm really impressed with the way this thin rip jig works. I like that it's got the adjustable handles, and I like that it has multiple slotting options for different types of table saws. So that being said, do check it out, and I certainly highly recommend this for making repeatable cuts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Here's a couple of other videos I think you might enjoy.